Did all the assessment. Uh, and there are 11 people this time who have scored 15 on 15. So, congratulations to all. I'll just name all the 11 people. Sajjan, Prashant, Jenny, Rohit, Meghna, Prasad, Ritika, Shweta, Diksha, Ratilal, and Marvin. So congratulations on scoring 15 on 15. I think this is the first time कि no इतने सारे लोगों ने 15 on 15 score किया है. So happy to know that and good that you're also understanding uh, the sessions that we are conducting and no I hope that is what is reflecting in the scores that you're submitting. So yes. Okay, so I think most of us have already joined, so we can begin the session. I'll just quickly share my screen. I would like every time I would request you to switch on your camera videos so that it doesn't look like it's just a one-way conversation, but it's two-way conversation. So yes. Yeah, so today we are at the fifth session of this cohort 3, and today's topic is we'll be focusing on key statutory regulations and income tax provisions which are relevant for non-profit. ओके तो ये टॉपिक बेसिकली काफी वास्ट है, ब्रॉड है, लेकिन हमने वी हैव ट्राई टू कवर दोज इंपॉर्टेंट क्रिटिकल प्रोविजंस व्हिच आर वी एज अकाउंटेंट्स शुड बी अवेयर ऑफ. काफी स्मॉल टॉपिक्स है आज के दिन पे जो हम कवर करेंगे फ्रॉम द इनकम टैक्स एंगल. Okay, the idea is to create awareness about such provisions that exist under the law, and so that you are equipped to identify such cases and reach out to the right people if there are any complex situation that arises in your organization. So the today's idea is to create awareness and to be able for all of us to be equipped with identifying situations. That is the intent of covering this topic today. Of course, since income tax is very vast and there are multiple, like interpretations, there's a lot of deep diving that can happen with respect to the law as such. But idea is that we cover as much topics which are relevant for us to be aware of. Okay. So we'll be covering mainly two topics. One is the legal structures for non-profits. We'll begin with that, and then we'll move on to the income tax provisions. Okay, so can somebody unmute and share like what are the legal structures in which a non-profit is allowed to exist in India? क्या structures allowed है for a non-profit to exist in India?
Like
Anyone?
Trust, Section 8.
Yes, perfect. Yes.
Society.
So one is trust, Section 8 company under the company law, and there is also society. किसी को ये पता है कि as a Section 8 company, what are the two types of Section 8 companies that one is allowed to incorporate as a non-profit?
it's limited by shares and guarantee.
Yes, perfect. Absolutely. So there are two types of Section 8 companies that can be formed. एक होता है company limited by shares. जैसे नॉर्मल एक कंपनी जैसे फॉर्म होती है, सो यू कंट्रीब्यूट सर्टेन कैपिटल इनिशियली एंड द कंट्रीब्यूटर्स गेट इक्विटी शेयर्स इन दैट कंपनी. दैट इज कॉल्ड कंपनी लिमिटेड बाय शेयर्स. ये जैसे फॉर प्रॉफिट भी फॉर्म होती है, तो फॉर प्रॉफिट हमेशा कंपनी लिमिटेड बाय शेयर्स ही फॉर्म होती है. बट फॉर अ नॉन प्रॉफिट देयर आर टू ऑप्शंस. कंपनी लिमिटेड बाय शेयर्स भी फॉर्म हो सकते हैं एंड देयर इज अनदर फॉर्म कॉल्ड एज कंपनी लिमिटेड बाय गारंटी. In company limited by guarantee, basically there are no shareholders, but there are members, okay, who pledge certain amount to be contributed at the time of winding up if that situation arises. So there is no introduction of share capital, but kind of an obligation on the members to contribute a fixed amount if at all the company goes into winding up later on. तो थोड़े इसमें एडवांटेजेस भी रहते हैं फ्रॉम अ नॉन प्रॉफिट पर्सपेक्टिव. जैसे कि 3-4 साल पहले एक रूल आया था जिसमें all the companies which are limited by shares have to convert their shares into dematerialized form. Okay, so that there are certain compliances that came up. उसमें एक्सेप्शन भी दिया था फॉर स्मॉल कंपनीज के लिए, लेकिन नॉन प्रॉफिट्स को एग्जेम्पशन नहीं दिया गया था. सो इवन टुडे every non-profit which is company limited by shares ideally have to convert its shares into dematerialized form, and it should be held by the promoters or the shareholders in demat form. तो ये सब compliances है, ये सब avoid हो सकती है if a non-profit is limited by guarantee. And then there are, of course, a trust which can be formed under state specific trust act, जहाँ पे state specific law exist करता है. जिस स्टेट्स में नहीं है स्टेट स्पेसिफिक लॉ, देन द इंडियन ट्रस्ट एक्ट ऑफ 1880 गवर्न्स द ट्रस्ट. एंड देयर इज ऑफ कोर्स देयर इज द सोसाइटीज रजिस्ट्रेशन एक्ट 1860 का, जिसमें एज अ सोसाइटी आल्सो नॉन प्रॉफिट कैन बी फॉर्म्ड. ओके, एनी क्वेश्चन सो फार ऑन दिस?
Clear.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's understand what are the key documents required by a non-profit. Okay, can you name some documents that are mandatorily required for a non-profit to exist? Can somebody unmute or just type it in the chat box? What are the key documents which are required by a non-profit? Okay, trust deed, MOA, AOA. Okay. Anyone else? और कौन से documents या certificates लगते हैं? Okay, for registration. Okay, 12A and 80G. Right. So, this is the list of documents that is required typically. So MOA, AOA, trust deed होता है, जिसमें that is a constituent document which is mandatory for a non-profit to have even before the registration. I mean, registration के पहले ये document form होने के बाद you have to register with this document before the governing authority. Then there is certificate of incorporation, which is again issued specifically to Section 8 companies. Certificate of commencement भी Section 8 companies के लिए issue होता है. Then there is PAN, TAN, Darpan ID, which is again now mandatory, which is online registration under नीति आयोग. ये बैंकिंग पर्पसेस के लिए अभी मैंडेटरी किया गया है फॉर नॉन प्रॉफिट स्पेसिफिकली. Then there is of course 12AB, 80G registration certificate, CSR 1. अगर नॉन प्रॉफिट को अगर CSR donations accept करने हैं, then CSR 1 registration also mandatory. And also FCRA registration. If a non-profit has to take foreign contribution, accept foreign contribution, then FCRA registration is also mandatory. Okay, now the question comes that, are you aware of the clause in the MOA or the trust deed which defines the activities that an NGO is permitted to do?
Main objectives.
Okay, yeah.
Objects of the trust.
Objects clause, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so objects clause of the constituent document is critical. Now, what is this object clause? Let's try to understand, because this is very relevant and often ignored part for a non-profit. Okay, so objects clause defines the permissible scope of activities for a non-profit. Okay, mainly this is divided into two parts. एक तो main object होता है और एक ancillary objects का clause होता है, जिसमें to achieve the main objects, what are the ancillary activities that a non-profit is permitted to do is mentioned. Okay, trust deed is required for charitable trusts, whereas memorandum of association is required for Section 8 companies and societies typically. Section 8 companies के लिए एक और document relevant होता है Articles of Association, which lays down the guidelines for how the company can operate. That is what this AO is about. Okay, now why this is important is that typically a non-profit can only undertake its activities only which are given in the MOA or the trust deed. Okay, any failure to undertake any activities or probably activities to be undertaken other than the objects, other than the activities which are permitted under the objects clause can lead to cancellation as well by the governing authority. क्योंकि आप जब भी रजिस्ट्रेशन लेते हो एक नॉन प्रॉफिट का, आपकी गवर्निंग अथॉरिटी जो भी है ना फॉर सेक्शन कंपनीज, जैसे रजिस्टर ऑफ कंपनीज हो गया या स्टेट स्पेसिफिक चैरिटी कमिश्नर हो गए, वो आपको वो डॉक्यूमेंट के सबमिशन के बेसिस पे रजिस्ट्रेशन आपको देते हैं एज अ नॉन प्रॉफिट. अगर आप कोई एक्टिविटीज करते हो अदर देन व्हाट इज मेंशन्ड इन द ऑब्जेक्ट्स क्लॉज, typically can lead to breach of trust and can lead to subsequent cancellation as well. Okay, so we as you know accounts finance compliance function personnel, we have to somewhere be mindful कि जो भी एक्टिविटीज हमारे नॉन प्रॉफिट कर रहे हैं, somewhere we need to cross check that activities are somewhere somehow permitted under the objects clause in our constituent document. और अगर कोई एक्टिविटी कुछ करनी है जो आउटसाइड ऑफ द ऑब्जेक्ट्स क्लॉज है, देन यू कैन ऑलवेज गो एंड अमेंड द ऑब्जेक्ट्स क्लॉज इन द एमओए or the trust deed through proper legal routes. Okay, that is the right way of being compliant with respect to permissible activities. Okay, any questions on this? Okay, has anybody really evaluated their trust deeds from this perspective? उसके पहले आप सबने आपके ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की ट्रस्ट डीड या एमओए देखा है कभी? कैन यू जस्ट टाइप इट इन द चैट बॉक्स इफ यू हैव सीन यस? ओके, ओके. And have you guys evaluated from this perspective whether the activities that you are doing currently are permitted somewhere in some of the activities that are mentioned in the MOA? If not, then it is a best practice to get it evaluated and you know and then take the right steps what are necessary. Okay. Okay, so if there are any questions, if there are no questions, then we can move on to the next topic for today, which is on the income tax, which will cover majority of the topics, small topics from the income tax law. किसी के कोई questions है अब तक, or else we can move. Okay. So let's start with 12A and ETG. Okay, which are the crucial sections. Okay, now why does a non-profit need 12A? Can anybody just unmute and share कि ये 12A क्यों important है for a non-profit?
To avail the income tax exemption.
Yes, perfect. Yeah. So non-profit registered under 12A gets exemption from payment of income tax. Of course, provided there are certain conditions that are met by the organization. Okay, अगर किसी organization के पास 12A registration नहीं है, then it cannot claim tax benefits, and then it will have to pay tax on the surplus or profits whatever gets generated from its activities. लेकिन अगर आपके पास 12A है, तो कोई अगर सरप्लस भी अगर no organization generate करता है, then there are ways to not pay tax on it by following certain provisions under the law. Okay, that is the main reason for having 12A. Now let's understand the main conditions for tax exemption from a 12A perspective. Okay, a non-profit can only claim tax exemption if it applies at least 85% of its income on charitable activities in India. Okay, this is the primary rule which is required to claim tax benefits under 12A. Okay, now suppose if a non-profit is not able to apply or utilize 85% of its income generated for that year, then it can choose to apply the income at a later date, provided certain forms are filled. जैसे there is form 9A and 10 that can get filled. If there is any unspent amount towards the end of the year, you can carry it forward in the subsequent year or up to 5 years by filing either form 9A or form 10. Of course, under the new law, the form numbers have changed. Also, the section numbers have changed. I have also quoted here in the slides, but let's just focus on the crux of the topic. Okay. So या अगर कोई शॉर्टेज है अप्लाई करने, अगर कोई शॉर्टेज है इन टर्म्स ऑफ एप्लीकेशन ऑफ इनकम, यू आर अलाउड टू कैरी इट फॉरवर्ड अप टू 1 year और 5 years. This is one second condition. And third condition is that you need to file your tax audit report and ITR on time before the due dates. Okay, these are the three main conditions. If a non-profit is following, then it is not liable to pay tax on the income or the surplus that gets generated during the year for the non-profit. Okay, any questions on this?
Do you mind explaining the second point again?
Yes.
Below 85%.
Yeah, absolutely. So, no, if whatever income a non-profit generates in a year, out of that, at least 85% of the income has to be spent. That is what the condition says. Now, if a non-profit cannot spend 85% in that particular year, then it is allowed to carry forward the unspent amount to be spent in the subsequent year, which could be either up to 1 year or 5 years, depending on the situation. We will talk about these situations also in subsequently. लेकिन अगर कोई shortfall है 85% meet करने के लिए, you are allowed to carry it forward in the subsequent year by filing certain forms, which is this form 9A and 10. If you are filing this form, then there is again no tax that you will have to pay on the shortfall. That is what the condition says.
Got it. Thanks
Yeah.
so much.
Okay. Now let's also understand कि अगर ये 1280 कैंसिलेशन होता है तो किस कंडीशंस में किस रीजन से कैंसिल हो सकता है. ओके, so there are certain instances which have been given under the law. जैसे if there is any violation of the condition under which the registration was granted in the first place, or if there are any activities which are taken up by the non-profit outside the objects clause mentioned in the MOA with respect to, say, nature of activities or maybe geography, yeah, sources of funds and so on. If the activities are not conducted in the manner in which it is prescribed under the MOA, also that could be the reason for cancellation of 12A by the income tax authority. Or else if activities of a non-profit are undertaken to benefit only a particular religious community or caste, even that is when it is not allowed. अगर registration of 12A revalidate नहीं होता है after change of objects, अगर आप change of objects कर रहे हो, then it is important that the revised MOA or the amended MOA or trust deed is also submitted before the income tax authorities to revalidate your 12A certificate. Okay, if you are not doing that, even that could lead to cancellation of your 12A. And also, if no income or assets are used for private benefit of the trustees or related parties of the organization, or maybe personal gain for trustees or their relatives, तो ये सारे reasons हो सकते हैं for cancellation of a non-profit of 12A registration for a non-profit. Now, suppose if a non-profit's 12A gets cancelled, then the implications are quite harsh. The NGO will be subject to, so basically the NGO will get converted to a non-charitable organization as soon as 12A gets cancelled, and then whatever the corpus is there in the non-profit or whatever reserves, corpus, whatever asset, all will become subject to tax at an exit tax of around 40%. That is the serious implication of cancellation of 12A. और जैसे ही कैंसिल होता है, then the authorities also typically would want to reopen the past assessments of the non-profit to see कि क्या claims किए थे past में, कहाँ पे tax avoid किया था, and so on. I mean, it could just open up lot of issues for a non-profit. So it's important that once we have 12A registration, it is important that we meet all the conditions that are necessary to keep the 12A intact. And follow all the procedures that are given under the income tax law. Rajiv, are you saying something?
No, sir.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on this? Yes, Prasad.
So there are a few NGOs who have unfortunately not got renewal of their 12A.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if they never get
Yeah.
it? Never, in the sense, like a year passes, right? Fiscal year passes, they don't get it.
Yeah.
Is that a deemed cancellation, and then all these provisions will apply?
Yeah. So see, typically there is a window for appeal. And no, even I know certain NGOs have gone in for appeal because their 12A was not renewed in this window. Now,
Mm.
subject to appeal, it will be status quo because till the time there is the matter will sub judice, this harsh provisions will not apply. There is a there is a window for that. But yeah, uh, if it doesn't go through, then yes, then this tax provisions, this penalty provisions will apply. With respect to the timelines, typically there are, for appeals, so there are multiple provisions with respect to timelines that are given under the law. But yeah, as long as it is within those timelines prescribed under the law, and till the time we don't hear back anything from the appellate authority, uh, it can be kept on hold. किसी ने एक्सपीरियंस किया है कैंसिलेशन ऑफ रजिस्ट्रेशन किसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का, या नो आपने देखा हो किसी और ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का एग्जाम कैंसिल होते हुए, या व्हाट वाज द implications? Has anybody experienced this?
No.
ओके, तो यहाँ पे जो भी पार्टिसिपेंट्स है, आई अज्यूम दैट ऑल द ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैव बीन एबल टू renew their 12A this time. Okay, perfect. Now a reflective question. Okay, just means renewal is in process. Okay, so ideally the timeline was 31st March for this renewal to happen. Um,
So
yeah.
we had, can you hear me?
Yes, Jasmeet.
We had a note that came from them which said that they had not received our audited account statements, which they had. So
Okay.
everything had been sent to them, everything had been uploaded.
Hmm.
But for some reason, just a day or two before, they sent us a mail, like a whatever you call notice saying that they had not received.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then we uploaded everything all over again.
Okay. Got it.
So that's what is in process.
And have they communicated that till the time they come back with an order, what is the status? Because
No,
31st March is.
they haven't said anything, which is what is
Hmm.
worrying us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
what our accountant or whoever's doing it is telling us is that in their meeting with them, they've said that yeah, they just had so many in the pipeline that it was too much
Correct.
to finish,
Hmm.
but they will do it, and it will be from the 1st of April. That's
Retrospective.
what they,
Yeah.
yeah, it will be retrospective. That's what they're
Yeah.
telling us. But it is, of course, worrying to
Correct. Correct.
not have it.
Correct, yeah, because this situation is not really captured in the law. What if
Yeah,
the
yeah,
officer doesn't follow the 6 months window for giving out an
exactly.
order?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the stand can be taken that then it is deemed as
Mm,
accepted because we have not received the order. So no, I mean again that is more of a stand, and from a litigation
mm,
perspective. But yeah, yeah, hopefully
yeah.
you receive it sooner.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah. Okay. A reflective question, So does cancellation of registration under Section 12A automatically cancel your registration under ATG? What do you think? Can you just type it in the chat box? Yes, no. Okay. No, no, yes, yes. Okay, so there are mixed answers. No, okay. So, yeah, the right answer is yes. अगर आपका 12A कैंसिल होता है for any reasons, then ATG आपका automatically कैंसिल होता है. That is what the law says. Okay, now okay, one more question, reflective question. When it comes to ATG, how much tax exemption can be claimed by the donor? Is it like 50% of the amount donated, 100% of the amount donated, or both 50 and 100% options are possible? 50%, 100%, both are possible, up to 50%, okay. Both, okay. So all the three options here in the answers. But yeah, the right answer is both 50 and 100% is possible. तो कोई funds है which are prescribed under the income tax law. If a donor donates in those particular funds, then 100% exemption is allowed. Otherwise, it is 50%. Okay, so जैसे ये prescribed जो funds है, those are for just to name a few, National Defense Fund हो गया, या Prime Minister's National Relief Fund हो गया, PM Cares Fund, Chief Minister's Relief Fund, Clean Ganga Fund, स्वच्छ भारत कोष. ये जो फंड्स जो दिए गए हैं, इसमें अगर कोई डोनर अमाउंट डालता है तो 100% टैक्स बेनिफिट क्लेम कर सकते हैं अंडर एटीजी. But other than these funds, like for a normal non-profit, if a donor donates to any other non-profit, then 50% can be claimed in their tax benefit. Okay, if you donate to old IITs, you get, okay, got it. Yeah, there is a prescribed list under the income tax law. So yeah, ये 6 नाम जो है वो नेशनल इंटरेस्ट में जो हमारे पीएम ऑफिस एंड चीफ मिनिस्टर ऑफिस के अंडर जो है वो प्रिस्क्राइब्ड है. बट लाइक प्रसाद इज सेइंग, देयर आर अदर IITs also where one can get 100% donation if somebody donates to IIT. Okay, now let's understand registration under section 80G. Okay, under the new act, this is section 354. But again, let's not focus on the section numbers here. The idea is that we understand the law behind these provisions. Okay, so benefits of section 80G are that donor gets tax concession up to 50%. In fact, most funders also insist कि 12 and 80G दोनों हो as a prerequisite before giving out any donations. Okay, this is one of the mandatory requirements by the donors when it comes to non-profits. Okay, then there is also like CSR donations. So even corporates can claim 80G benefits for the CSR donations that they give to non-profits. So even that becomes a kind of precondition for them to for the non-profits, for the donees that they are giving to have 80G so that they can claim 80G benefits for the CSR funds. So these are the benefits of 80G. Now, how to avail the tax benefit? Let's understand the provisions with respect to how a donor can avail the tax benefit. Okay, so for a non-profit, there is a form that needs to be filled, which is called as form 10BD, जो हमको 31st May के अंदर फाइल करना होता है. Under the new law, it is form 113, जिसमें the NGO has to give all the details of the donor with respect to name, address, PAN, and the amount that they are donating. Okay, if there is no PAN that has been given by the donor, then there are other alternatives provided under the law, such as Aadhaar card हो गया या driving license हो गया, passport, election ID, or ration card, or tax identification number of the country of the donor is also permitted to be reported in form 10BD. Okay, जैसे ये form 10BD फाइल होता है, उसके बाद after couple of days, typically after 24 hours, the NGO can download form 10BE, okay, which has to be submitted to the donor. And based on this form 10BE, the donor can claim benefits under section 80G. Okay, this is the process for availing the benefit under 80G. Okay, now since we are close to 31st May, a lot of organizations have already started filing form 10BD. From a practical perspective, I think there is some issue on the income tax website. 10BE download नहीं हो रहे. If some of you have already experienced that, but the law says that we have to submit form 10BE before 31st May itself. Yes, Rajiv. Yeah, there is lot of organizations are facing this issue. Okay, now let's understand what is the penalty for non-filing of 10BD within the due date. So the law provides that any failure shall attract monetary penalties of rupees 200 per day of the delay plus there could be fine also that could be levied by the assessing authority, no, ranging from 10,000 to 1 lakh rupees if an organization has failed to file form 10BD. इसमें एक प्रैक्टिकल चीज बतानी है कि यू आर स्टिल अलाउड टू गो एंड अमेंड द details that you have provided of the donor after 31st May. But you cannot add a new donor. If you are adding a new donor, it will be considered as non-filing in the first place, and then for the number of days delayed, you will be charged 200 rupees per day for the number of days delayed. ओके किसी के कोई क्वेश्चंस है इसके ऊपर?
अमेंडमेंट की लिमिट, टाइम लिमिट क्या है सर?
नहीं, अमेंडमेंट की कोई टाइम लिमिट नहीं है. फ्रॉम अ प्रैक्टिकल पर्सपेक्टिव आईटीआर के पहले हो जाना चाहिए, या फिर डोनर का जो आईटीआर फाइल करने का टाइम पीरियड होता है उसके पहले आइडियली हो जाना चाहिए, क्योंकि ओनली देन द donor will be able to claim the benefit, right, in their ITR. But there is no time limit given as such for amendment in
मैंने अभी 2021-22 का एक अमेंड किया,
yeah you can still
बट
go
उसमें
and amend.
ऐड न्यू डोनर ऐड नहीं हुआ, उसकी फिगर को खाली
Correct, amendment allowed है, that's right.
ओके.
Rohan, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, hi. So, what we all know that you have to file it before what 31st May. Is at the same time also, and what most of the times, like what RXC, what a currency is, and I'm sure the same is with all organization. When we are filing in the month of May, what the IT website often crashes and often there are delays. I just want to know, is actually there a date by how soon can be what filed? Like for example, if the financial year is ended say on this
Yeah.
31st March. Can we
Yeah.
also start part filing for this on 1st April?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. See, it is up to 31st May. You can very well file after 31st March anytime. In fact, practically, I've seen certain organizations who have huge quantum of donations. They also file like, either monthly or quarterly basis during the year itself. You don't, no need to even wait till the 31st March as well. So
Okay.
you can file the 10 PD even, before that.
Awesome, Rohit. Thank you so much for
Yes.
clarifying my question.
Hello.
Yeah, Prasad.
Yeah, so no, the practice about, let's take the practical number. So let's say it was the last, it was the last financial year up to March 31st, 2026.
Yeah.
You said that you can file Form 10BD during the financial year also, which organizations are doing, right? That's fine. So quarterly, suppose that let's say there is a very large organization, they will file quarterly. But at the same time, you said that you cannot add donors. So then that's not reconciling, huh? Because when you do the first filing Q1, you will have 10 donors. Second Q2, there will be 20 more donors, etc. So obviously you can add donors, no, in that case.
Yeah, before 31st May, you can do that. You can add, because that's the
You're
due
saying
date.
after
So then,
31st May, you can't add new donors without attracting penalty.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And multiple times you can go and fill Form 10BD. If there is like today it is 10.
My understanding was even after May 31st, you could add new donors, but you are saying without penalty will be.
You can add, but there will be 200 rupees per day penalty that will be levied after the due date for addition of new donors.
And when are the fines attracted, and when is only the 200 rupees per day attracted?
Yes.
So when is the fines? Like you said, there could be a fine also, and penalties anyway there of 200 rupees per day.
So correct. So see, typically how it works is that so under income tax law, there are two things. One is interest या late fee, that is one, and second is penalty. Ideally, voluntarily, what organizations are supposed to do is that pay the interest and penalty pay the interest late fees voluntarily. Now, penalty is something that can be pleaded before the assessing authority as well. Or else even assessing authority, after you file, the assessing authority can issue a notice for payment of penalty. Typically, so there are two options, when it comes to penalty, from practical perspective, I'm saying, either you pay it voluntarily, or else if you have valid reasons for non-compliance, then you can go and plead before the assessing authority. And we have seen also practically a lot of times assessing authorities, if there is reasonable reason, have waived off the penalty. But waiving of the late fee and interest is not something that the officers usually do. That is leviable, but penalty is something that can be waived off by the authority.
Okay, understood. Last one. Removing a donor is also amendment after May 31st. Let's say you remove a donor, not add.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know practically how will that be looked at. If somebody has experienced, removing that row completely, I personally feel it will not be considered as, because you're not adding anything, right? You're just,
Yeah.
so, what I would do is that instead of removing the donor line item completely, I'll just put the amount as zero.
Zero.
So that it is looked as amendment, and then I don't have to worry about, anything with respect to late fee or penalty or anything.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else has any questions on this?
So I had a question.
Yes, Nimish.
Is this visible on the donor's IT portal? Like if a TDS is deducted, then usually it is reflected in the IT portal of that individual. So similarly, when they do this donation, when we do our filing and
Yeah.
10BD and everything,
Yeah.
does it reflect on the
Yeah.
donor portal?
Yeah. So very good thought. So that is the intent of the authorities. So far, I don't think that has happened really at the back end on the portal, where the donor can see, just like we get to see, our TDS deduction under under 26 AS. That is not really work, but yeah, that is the end goal of the authorities as well.
Maybe available in AIS also.
Yeah. In future, maybe we'll be able to see it in that AIS report or somewhere. Yeah. So far, it has not happened. I have not seen it happening so far. Rohan, yes, you have raised
Yeah,
your hand.
hi. Yes. So I have a follow-up question. This is what I had asked in session one, and I was told we'll probably do it. So what we like, for example, if we have a donor, whose what donation is his actually are running across the financial year, which is what running across
Sorry, Rohan, your
yeah.
volume is quite low. I'm missing out on your question in
Let me see what
between.
I can do about it. One second. Yeah, hi. About am I actually what audible right now?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you. Yeah, continue. You can continue. Yes.
Awesome. My actually my question was, if we have a donation that has come, which is about running across to what financial year? Like for example, the donation has come in December, and it will end in the next about financial year November. So when
Yeah.
it comes to Form 10B, we have to show the full amount because since the donation has come in the last year, or or, or what, or do we only have to show the this thing funds which has been utilized?
Yeah, so if your question is on, like multi-year donations, in that case, what will happen? So whatever amount has been received in that particular year, only will get reported in Form 10BD on cash receipt basis, not as per the agreement or commitment given by the donor. And in the next year, whatever amount is received in the next year, in that particular year's Form 10BD, you will go and file that amount. Does that answer you, Rohan?
Yes. No, no. So let's say what the donor has probably in the month of December, what donated around to about 100 rupees, which will
Okay.
last for a program which starts from Jan and ends in the next
Sure.
financial year in the month of June.
Yeah.
Right? So over here, what you have an overlap. But now, since we have to make the form what 10 what DB obviously the money is going to be in the next financial year.
Yeah.
We now in the form 10B, what is the amount that has to be shown? Should we
Yeah.
show
Whatever.
yeah.
whatever amount you received in the month of December and up to before 31st March. So between April to March, whatever amount you have received actually, only
Okay.
that will get reported in Form 10B.
Awesome.
BD.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you so
yes.
much.
Sure. Afzal, I think you had also raised your hand, right? Do you want to go ahead?
Just adding to the discussion we were having about the deletion and the revision
Yes.
Form 10BD. So the revised Form 10BD template is such that it gives both the options. So like there's a drop down, either revision or deletion. So
Okay.
we are speaking about revising and putting in a 0. You can also use that option as you can select delete, then it automatically gets deleted. The entire line can get deleted.
Got it. And that will be considered as amendment.
Right.
Right? Okay,
Yes.
got it. Perfect. Yeah.
That will be
Sure.
considered amendment and it will attract that 200 rupees per day, is it? Or
No, it will not attract because it was already there in the 10BD.
It was
just that you are
okay.
deleting it. So either you delete or you revise the 10BD for that particular.
Yeah.
So deletion will not attract penalty.
Correct.
Addition will attract penalty. That's the short answer.
Correct.
Hai na?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Deletion is considered as amendment, so no penalty, no late fee.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Okay, now let's understand these situations. Okay, so 12 and ATG जैसे एक नॉन प्रॉफिट जैसे फॉर्म होता है, फर्स्ट इट हैज टू टेक प्रोविजनल रजिस्ट्रेशन विच इज वैलिड फॉर 3 years पीरियड, लेकिन उसमें कंडीशन ये है कि नॉन प्रॉफिट हैज टू ऑल्सो अप्लाई फॉर रेगुलर रजिस्ट्रेशन within 6 months of the commencement of activities or at least 6 months prior to the expiry of the 3-year period, whichever is earlier. Okay, so ये rule काफी organizations शायद they mess up here. What I've seen is that either when they are formed or now that situation is gone where where every organization, जैसे जब ये law आया था 2022 में, तभी सारे organizations को registration लेना पड़ रहा था, लेकिन अभी we will have to take care that when a new organization is applying for registration, it has to apply for regular registration also within 6 months or at the before the end of 6 months of the initial 3 years. There was also a couple of cases here where this deadline was missed by the non-profit and regular registration was denied by the assessing officer. Of course, then it was pleaded before the ITAT and they eventually got the registrations, but the point is that a lot of times people miss out on these timelines. कि जो 3 साल का registration रहता है, that doesn't mean that the organization can run with the provisional registration for the 3 years, even if it has commenced the activities. So after commencement, it is within 6 months, one has to apply for regular registration, and only the regular registration will be valid for a period of 5 years, but provisional is only valid for 3 years, which is conditional. Okay, and then of course, every organization has to renew the application every 5 years. जैसे end date है, उसके 6 months, at least 6 months before, one has to apply for the renewal. Okay, there is one more aspect to this that some organizations would have got for 10 years as well. Usually it is 5 years, but कोई organization के लिए 10 years के लिए भी मिलता है ये registration. उसमें condition ये है कि if the total income of the non-profit is less than 5 crores for 2 preceding previous years or 2 preceding financial years, then the authorities can issue 10 years registration as well for those particular organizations. Okay, any questions on this? Anybody has? Yeah, so that case that I was referring to, what was so why this topic becomes important is that, see, we as organizations somewhere have to be aware of these rules, because a lot of times what happens, we outsource these kind of activities to either our auditors or CAs or tax consultants. But if there is any lapse at their end, then again that could lead to, I mean, your organization will have to suffer for the lapses that could happen. So hence it becomes important that we from the compliance, who are into compliance and accounts and finance function, we need to be aware of these kind of laws so that the right questions are also asked to the concerned people when it comes to such kind of registrations. So that's the idea. Okay. So let's talk about some other compliances, some critical due dates under the income tax law. Form 10BD, sorry, Form 10B, which is the audit report, has to be filed annually by 30th September. ITR due date is 31st October. Form 9A and 10, which is for carry forward of unspent amount, has to be practically filed before 30th September. And the Form 10BD ka due date is 31st May. So these are the due dates which we all need to be aware of. किसी के कोई questions है इसके ऊपर? And yes, has anybody faced struggle in filing any of these forms? Anybody would want like to share the experience?
The audit means tax audit or some other audit.
Tax audit, yes, tax audit.
So what is the threshold limit for applicability of tax audit?
No, for all the non-profits who have 12A registration, it is mandatory. There is no threshold limit for non-profits. Tax audits सारे organizations को mandatory है. As soon as you receive 12A, it is mandatory. Okay, Meghna, yes. So your point on Form 10 to be filed before 31st August, correct. So जैसे लॉ में यही लिखा है 31st August, लेकिन उसके बाद एक there was a circular that was issued subsequently which called out that NGO still can go and file Form 10 or 9A before they file Form 10B. And Form 10B's date is 30th September. And hence it is allowed even if you are not able to file it before 31st August. Hence I've written here practically it is allowed before 30th September as well. So there was a circular subsequently that was issued. Okay, anybody else has any questions? Okay.
9A and 10 means that is where the application is less than 85%.
Correct. Absolutely, yeah. And we are availing the carry forward option.
Where is the I mean 9A and 10 both are different.
9A is for, so it is for the deemed application where 1 year carry forward is allowed. You can go and file Form 9A. And if you are accumulating for 5 years by giving a particular reason, then Form 10 is required to be filed. Anybody else has any questions? Okay. Okay, now since we discussed about Form 10B, which is audit report and ITR reporting compliance date, so can you tell me who is considered as substantial contributor for a non-profit? No, is it option 1, donor who has contributed 50,000 rupees aggregate since inception, or donor who has contributed rupees 1 lakh in current financial year, or 10 lakh rupees cumulative up to current financial year? Is it both or is it none? Can you just answer in the chat box? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 1. All the answers so far we have received is 1. Anybody else has any other thoughts? Okay, no idea. Okay, sure. So the right answer is answer 2 now. Okay, option number 2, donor who has contributed rupees 1 lakh in current financial year and rupees 10 lakhs or rupees 10 lakhs in cumulative up to current financial year. So this was amended with effect from 1st April 2025. पहले वाला rule 50,000 rupees का था. If somebody has contributed up to 50,000 rupees since inception, then they were considered as substantial contributors. But now the rule has changed. The person is deemed to be a substantial contributor if the donations exceed rupees 1 lakh in the current financial year, or in aggregate up to the end of the year, it is more than rupees 10 lakh rupees. only then that person is considered as substantial contributor. Plus, there is one more amendment that has been that is there, which says that now relatives and associated businesses of such persons shall not be treated as specified persons or substantial contributors. पहले क्या था कि substantial contributor का relative भी substantial contributor माना जाता था और no specified person माना जाता था. But now that relative issue is gone. Now only people who have contributing more than these threshold limits are considered as substantial contributors. Now, why this is important is that we need to report separately this information in our ITR as well as tax audit report. There is a specific table in the forms where we have to give information of such kind of donors. Okay. Now, in order to give this kind of data, you need to have that kind of information captured in your system somewhere. And that is very crucial that for the organizations to maintain this kind of donor data in order to report it correctly in the ITR and tax audit report. Has anybody faced trouble in reporting?
This is not to be reflected in 10BD, na? This is not related to 10BD.
No, 10BD is different. Yeah, this is from
No,
ITR.
what I understand in 10BD, if the donation is more than 50,000 in a year, we need to give the complete address and all. This is different.
Yeah, this is different. See, 10BD, there is no threshold. You can give for 1 rupee as well, that benefit. 10BD
This will
is
be reported where?
in
Income tax
ITR.
return. Oh, okay. ITR 7. ITR 7.
Yeah, ITR 7 and tax audit report, maybe there is a table in which you have to fill.
Okay.
Yeah. Has anybody faced trouble while reporting this kind of information?
But this will be first time, na, sir?
Nay, the law has always been there. Now, this is an ignored part of the law somewhere. A lot of organizations miss out on reporting this information.
Written there, na, it is effective from 1st April 2025.
Nay, from 1st April, it is the definition has changed. Before it was people who have contributed 50,000 rupees or more are considered as substantial contributors since inception.
Okay. No, only the figure and conditions are changed.
Correct. Just the figures have changed, but the law has been the same, and even the ITR format has been asking about this details since long. But a lot of organizations miss out on this, and that is the intent of bringing this topic here in this session. कोई करता है follow my?
It goes by the PAN number basis. I mean, the one PAN number.
Yes.
In that PAN number, more than 1 lakh or the 10 lakh, that case.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, about Dohit. So in case if we are not, so in case if our balance sheet is not shown as this, then what do we have any implications?
By balance sheet, do you mean like ITR 7?
Yes.
Yeah. So see, implications are there that since the data has not been filled, then of course, if the time comes at the time of scrutiny and assessment, the officer has the right to either ask for this information then at the time of scrutiny by giving an opportunity to resubmit, or else they can also, like, if they want to get behind you, then they can say your ITR is not filled completely in the first place.
Okay.
But again, reasonable opportunity could be given at that point in time. But the point is that as an organization, do we maintain this data?
No.
Yeah.
As of yet, no. And plus,
Yeah.
also, this is also applicable to what donations which are available through the CSR option.
Yes. Individual as well as companies. It is applicable for all.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
That's why I said PAN based.
Yes. Perfect. Yeah, SVB follows this. Absolutely. Is there anybody else who is following this? Rather than the question of who is not following, कोई follow कर रहा है ये चीज आज के दिन पे?
ये follow हो रहा है सर.
Okay. Good. Okay, sure. Shall we move on to the next topic?
एक्सक्यूज मी सर,
Yes.
मैंने तो फर्स्ट टाइम ही सुना है सर ये, तो
हाँ
हमें
जी,
कैसे पता चलेगा फॉलो हो रहा है नहीं हो रहा है?
correct, correct. नहीं तो कोई बात नहीं, see, now that you are aware, the idea is that only that, to create this awareness so that you can go back and अगर implement नहीं हो रहा है तो आप implement कर सके, ये साल से या, in the coming ITR. That's the idea.
So,
But yeah,
sorry. I mean, I just wanted to check if you have a format, like if you have something as an example to show how is it reflected in the ITR 7? Because even I don't think we are doing it. So,
yeah. Yeah, so see in the ITR, if you just control F substantial contributor, section 13.3 जो यहाँ पे दिया है, I will be sharing this slide also. This section 13.3 will be mentioned, specified person. That table asks for this information. I will also try to pull out an ITR format and just see, our screenshot if we can post it on Discord channel subsequently. Yeah, we'll do that. But if you go and check, you will be able to locate this as well in your ITR. Okay. Shall we move on? And does anybody else have any questions on this previous topic?
Just one confirmation, Rohit. So regarding the last topic that we were talking about,
Yes.
it's only about identifying those or basically recording those donors as substantial donors. There's nothing additional that we need to do for them.
No, yeah, it is a disclosure requirement.
Yeah.
Whoever has contributed substantially to the NGO, you have to submit their details to income tax authorities. That is what the law says. So it is more of a disclosure requirement.
Got it.
Yeah.
Sir, suppose in 25-26, donors and a particular donor who is having the zero donation, but before that it has cost 10 lakhs. Still it will come?
Yes. Still, it is or. If you see here, it is or. Since they will be meeting the second condition, they are still a substantial contributor.
Every year it will come.
No. Okay, so if your question is, okay, so that donor is a substantial contributor, but
Yes.
if they are donating, say, whatever amount, like, see, if they are donating 0 rupees, then of course, then it will not get reflected. But even if they are donating 1 rupee, still they will have to be, that information needs to go.
There is no amount received in case of 25-26, but before it was there more than 10 lakhs. So that name will again reappear in this 25-26.
Yeah, see, in my view, it should not be reported because during the year there is no contribution. But again, we will just have to go and check that ITR ka table ka format. What they are really asking on that head. Yeah.
Then we'll have to calculate from inception, ना पूरा total शुरू से देखना पड़ेगा किसका कितना आया है calculation.
नहीं देखो, as far as I understand why they need the disclosure is that they would want to still see कि what amount has been contributed during the year by a substantial contributor. Okay, that is what information they need. So keeping that in mind, अगर zero contribution है, then you will not have to report it in this year. Next year अगर 1 रुपया भी contribute कर रहे हैं, then you will still have to go and report it because that donor is a substantial contributor, and they would want to know what that person has donated now during the year.
so this
Either of the conditions.
Sorry.
Yes, Jasmine.
So just clarifying, Rohit.
Yeah.
So this categorization of substantial contributor is based on एक बार अगर उसमें कोई आ गया, उस category में आ गया.
Correct.
So, and as long as they donate even a small amount, that person is flagged.
Correct.
It's not about the amount. Once the person is in this category, they are always flagged no matter how much they contribute to us. Is that what you mean?
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Once this person is flagged, then the authorities want to know that how much is their contribution every year. That is what the law is all about.
So this is only for individual donors, not for organizations.
No, it is for all. It is for all. Even your CSR donors ideally become part of this. It is individuals as well as corporates, both.
Okay, thank you.
सर रिलेटिव और एसोसिएटेड बिजनेस का भी डिटेल में लगेगा कौन रिलेटिव?
नहीं, अभी वो अमेंडमेंट आ गया, अभी नहीं लगेगा। पहले लगता था, पहले लॉ में रिलेटिव्स ने अगर कोई कंट्रीब्यूट किया रहेगा, सब्सटेंशियल कंट्रीब्यूटर का रिलेटिव्स ने भी कोई डोनेशन दिया रहेगा, उसका भी रिपोर्ट देना पड़ता था आईटीआर में, बट अभी नहीं आएगा। अभी इफेक्ट फ्रॉम 1 April 2025 दैट हैज गॉन। So only individual now, no relatives of the individual.
नहीं, who are covered in the relative, that is.
Yeah, again, see now that law doesn't exist now, and if you have to see the definition given under the income tax law, we'll have to refer to the provisions. Okay, so in the interest of time, I'll just move on to the next topic because we are already like 3:30, and yeah. So let's talk about charity, inter-charity donations now. Okay, this was also one of the questions that were raised in previous sessions, and I had specified that we'll cover in session number 5. So what is inter-charity? Let's first understand. अगर एक एनजीओ 12A रजिस्टर्ड एनजीओ अगर दूसरे 12A रजिस्टर्ड एनजीओ को कोई डोनेशन दे रहा है, इट इज कॉल्ड एज इंटर चैरिटी डोनेशन. It is kind of sub-granting, you can also call it in, just for easy language, it is like so sub-granting is allowed under income tax law, but it is not allowed under FCRA law. It has been specifically prohibited. Like income tax में allowed है. So from non-FCRA fund, you can still go and give sub-grants to other non-profits who are registered under 12A. इसमें एक important चीज ये हमको याद रखनी है कि a non-profit can claim application of income only to the extent of 85% of such entire payment made and not 100%. That is the only nuance that we need to be mindful of when it comes to inter-charity donations. Okay, and this is of course separately, it is required to be reported in ITR as well. अलग से एक जगह है जहाँ पे आपको inter-charity donations mention state करने पड़ते हैं when it comes to reporting in ITR. Okay, for that you also have to track it separately in your books of accounts in the first place. Now, if there is any donation given to a non-profit, typically that should be recorded in a separate ledger in your books of accounts, so that at the time of filing ITR and reporting in tax audit report, the information is available. Okay. Anybody has any questions on this?
Yes, please. Can you explain can claim application of income only to the extent of 85%?
Yes.
Point.
Yeah. So we'll be discussing about computation of income in the subsequent slide. I think this point will get just clear when we talk about how that calculation happens.
Sure.
But for simplicity for now, even if a non-profit spends 100 rupees on inter-charity donation, they will be able to claim application only 85 rupees and not 100 rupees. Even if they have spent 100 rupees, they will be able to claim 85% only in application from computation of income perspective. With this background, we'll just talk about computation in the subsequent slide. Anybody else has any questions? Okay. There's one more important topic under income tax.
Sorry, I had one more question. So when we are doing inter-charity donations, the objects of the NGOs should match, right? I can't be donating to somebody who doesn't have the same objects like mine.
Yes. Ideally, yes. Even that is one of the conditions that the activity for which the money has been given is somewhere aligned with the non-profit. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Some important points with respect to cash restrictions which are provided under income tax law. Let's just touch base on these provisions. Okay. So what is disallowed cash transactions? तो ये तीन चीजें हमको सबको याद रखनी है, और something that we need to be aware of is that cash receipt above rupees 2 lakh rupees per day from a single person cannot be accepted by a non-profit. Okay, consequence is that 100% of penalty could be levied by the income tax on this. This is one main rule. Then there is one more thing that we need to be mindful of, is that on a particular day, cash payment about 10,000 rupees cannot be made to a single person in a single day. Okay, if you are doing that, then you cannot claim it as application of income, even if you are paying that money. That is what the consequence would be if you are paying in cash about 10,000 rupees. And the third important rule for all of us to be aware of is that cash receipt of donation above rupees 2000 is not eligible for ATG benefit. Okay. यहाँ पे important चीज ये है, and lot of queries I get from the people I talk with is that the main note is that non-profit may still accept donation in cash about 2000 rupees but below 2 lakh rupees, but it cannot issue form 10BE. It cannot give the benefit of that donation to the donor. Okay, that is what the rule says. That doesn't mean that the NGO cannot accept cash above rupees 2000 rupees. NGO can still accept cash about 2000, but it cannot pass on the benefit to the donor. That is what the law says. किसी के कोई क्वेश्चन है इसके ऊपर, किसी कुछ डाउट्स है?
How does that get recorded then? Like it would be recorded as a donation itself, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It will be recorded as donation, but it will not be recorded in form 10BD.
Okay.
Yes. In unknown and 10BD case.
So is this anonymous?
No, it is not. You still have the donor details, but you cannot pass on the benefits to the donor
The
for
donor
ATG
cannot
exemption.
tax benefit, right?
करेक्ट. अगर कोई डोनर 2000 रुपीज के ऊपर कैश देता है किसी एनजीओ को, तो वो डोनर उसके आईटीआर में एटीजी एग्जेम्पशन क्लेम नहीं कर सकता. दैट इज व्हाट द लॉ सेज. एंड द ऑब्लिगेशन ऑन non-profit is that non-profit should not report that donor details in form 10BD. That is something that we need to be careful of. Is that clear? Any questions, confusion?
So if we receive 1500 from one donor, it will come into the 10BD and can be issued 10BE certificates.
Yeah, 1500 so you can do both, like accept, you can also report in form 10BD.
Yes, in
Yes.
cash.
Yes. Below 2000 you can still go ahead.
But then, like for example, suppose we receive 2 lakh in cash, we can deposit that cash in the bank,
Yes.
but not report it as 10B under the ATG. Not allowed to
Yeah.
issue receipt.
Correct. Yeah. That's right. Yes. Rohan has a question, and if the donor doesn't share details of PAN, wishes to remain anonymous. So see, we'll be talking about anonymous in the subsequent slides. Yeah, I think we will take this up at that time only. That is better.
Sir, if a person is giving every month 1800 every month, so
yeah,
will that be counted as a total or?
Yes, it's total 2000 in a year, not a one-time payment for that financial year.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so now let's talk about computation of income. Okay, very important topic this is. Lot of questions also come up with respect to application क्या है, और ये income कैसे. Lot of confusion also prevails in the sector here कि हम फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स एक तरीके से बनाते हैं, लेकिन जब हम इनकम टैक्स की बात करते हैं तो कुछ अलग ही रूल्स है उसका कंप्यूटेशन अलग है. So we'll just try to address that in simple way. See, from an income tax angle, there are 4 main pointers that we all need to be aware of when it comes to computation of income. एक होता है total income, what a non-profit will end up with in a year, that is total income. Then how much application can be claimed out of the income that one has received. That is the second main point. कितना income है, उसमें से कितना application claim कर सकते हैं. That is the second point that we need to take care of. Third है, एक जो by default जो rule है, set aside 15% करने मिलता है non-profits को to accumulate the funds. So how much is that amount? So how much can be set aside towards the default 15% which is allowed for a non-profit? That is the third component of computation. And fourth component is that how much unapplied income can be carried forward. Okay, so one is total income kitna hai. Second is how much application can be claimed. for the year out of the total income. Third is how much can be set aside towards 15% accumulation, which is allowed under the Income Tax Act. And fourth is how much is the unapplied income that can be carried forward. Okay, now with these four components, let's just try to understand how that the computation should look like. Okay, before that, वो जो जनरल रूल जो 15% कहाँ से आ गया, किसी ने क्वेश्चन किसी को अगर माइंड में है, so for a non-profit where registered, at least 85% has to be spent, right? That is what the law says. So if a non-profit spends 85%, 15 rupees, even if the non-profit doesn't spend, it can still set aside and carry it forward eternally, forever, without worrying about whether वो spend कर रहे, नहीं spend कर रहे, or yeah, whatever. That is what the law says with respect to 85% and 15% rule. Okay, we'll just now look at a couple of scenarios when it comes to income tax computation. Okay, now let's take this scenario. Suppose a non-profit's income is 100 rupees. Okay, जिसमें से non-profit ने spend किया है 60 rupees. Okay, now if a non-profit is spending 60 rupees, it can claim application on actual basis 60 rupees. उतना spend किया उतना claim. तो balance बचा 40 rupees. Okay. So first component, like we spoke about, is income. What is income? Second is how much application can be claimed, which in this case is 60. So मेरा बचा 40 balance. Third component we spoke about is the law allows 15% to be carried forward. So if I am left with 40 rupees, I will first set aside 15 rupees, which the law permits me to do that. Okay, 15% of the income, total income. So 15 rupees I will set aside from the 40 that is balance, and then the balance that I will be left out with will be 25 rupees, which can be carried forward for 1 year or 5 years, depending on the situation, by filing form either 9A or form 10. This is the short of computation of income. How computation of income, जब हम बात करते हैं तो ये 4 चीजों के बेसिस पे हमारा कंप्यूटेशन ऑफ इनकम बनता है. और इनकम टैक्स में whatever numbers we take will be different somewhere if you try to compare it with your financial statements. Be it balance sheet, income, expenditure, because that is on accrual basis. Again, if you are following accrual basis, but this is purely on cash basis. Okay, we will cover one more scenario and then we can take any questions if you have any. Okay, suppose there is another scenario. इनकम है 100 रुपीज, लेकिन उसमें से एनजीओ ने ऑलरेडी 90 रुपीज स्पेंड कर दिया है. तो 90 रुपीज स्पेंड कर दिया है तो पूरा का पूरा एप्लीकेशन क्लेम करने मिलेगा को, तो बचा 10 रुपीज. नाउ लॉ परमिट्स अ नॉन प्रॉफिट टू सेट असाइड अप टू 15%. So now because this 10 rupees is less than 15%, this NGO would want to just set aside the remaining 10 rupees towards the 15% kitty, and there will be no balance left out towards the end. Then hence there is no question of carry forward. So in this scenario, the computation will look something like this. If the amount spent is more than 85% in this example. In earlier example, the amount spent was less than 85%. Hence the balance we had to first set aside 15% and then balance जो भी बचा वो हमको carry forward करना पड़ा either for 1 year or 5 years. But in second scenario, because the spend was only more than 85%, we could claim entirely it as application of income, and then balance was set aside towards 15%, and there was no balance to be carried forward in this case. Okay, so this is how the computation of income looks like. Any questions? Any doubts?
इसमें इनकम का डेफिनेशन क्या है? इनकम मींस अमाउंट रिसीव्ड थ्रू डोनेशन, इंटरेस्ट ऑन एफडीआर, सारे इंक्लूड हैं. इसको थोड़ा एलैबोरेट.
Yeah, so see, very good question this is. See, the law says book income. Okay, अभी book income क्या है? So whatever governing law or whatever method of accounting you are following, and courts have also held this, that whatever accounting methodology you are following, Based on that, whatever is your book income will be considered as your book income for income tax purposes also. Okay, this is
Okay.
the book income definition. Lekin practically, lot of organizations, while making computation of income under income tax law, out of abundant caution, जो कैश रिसीट आता है उसको सीधा सीधा इनकम दिखा के क्लोज कर देते हैं. Okay, and why I'm saying this is that, again, from a very cautious view, जो भी पैसा आया है भले वो ये साल के लिए नहीं है, just because I'm receiving that entire money, I will report to the income tax authorities as cash receipt, and I will carry it forward. See, there is no tax implication here. आपको carry forward करने मिल रहा है. Law allows you to carry forward. So that is a stand that usually organizations also take. Some organizations take that stand. But even if you are reporting your book income, even that is allowed. And courts have ruled that in favor of the assessee. Anybody else has any questions? Okay. So one important point I wanted to call out, and there was a question also in the previous slide, कि ये application of income क्या होता है, right? तो अभी जैसे अगर हम ऐसे देखें कि इंटर चैरिटी डोनेशन किसने दिया, ओके, पहले ही 100 रुपीज दिया, लेकिन एप्लीकेशन ऑफ इनकम सिर्फ 85% उसका मिलेगा. So at the time of making computation of income, okay, suppose let's take this example only, okay, 100 rupees you receive, but this organization has given the entire 100 rupees as inter-charity donation. So in that case, यहाँ पे application, this organization cannot claim 100 rupees, but it will be able to claim only 85 rupees here. And then there will be a balance of 15, which will again be taken care of by either, this set aside 15%, or you can carry it forward. So there won't be any tax implication as such, just because you are getting less application. I think this was also a question that asked, Prasad, that you had asked with respect to corpus earlier, where, I had mentioned that uska application will not be able to claim. So just because if a non-profit is not able to claim as application, that doesn't mean that that is taxable.
Correct. It's just that forever you will never be able to claim that spending as
Correct.
that's all.
Correct.
Understood.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Does that help? Anybody else has any questions? Okay, perfect. If there are no questions, then I'll just move on. Yeah, and these are the specified modes of investment. जो भी हम carry forward करते हैं up to 5 years, it is mandatorily required to be invested in any of these categories, any of these investment categories. Savings, it could be immovable property, mutual fund, debt instruments, UTI, units, or government savings certificates. I think this slide we had discussed in session number 3 as well. Anybody has any questions? Of course, this is not the exhaustive list. The list is quite large. You can go and refer to the income tax ka rule for the entire list.
I have a question.
Yes, Chirag.
क्या हम इसको बॉन्ड में इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं?
Bonds?
Bonds.
Yeah, so see, bonds, what I understand is a debt instrument, right? So certain debt instruments are allowed. जैसे देखो यहाँ पे मैंने लिखा है debt instrument, infrastructure finance company registered with RBI. This is specifically given. इसमें आप कर सकते हो. या तो इसमें देखो जनरल आंसर नहीं है कि कौन से भी कंपनी का बॉन्ड में कर सकते हैं क्या. You have to see from the list कि वो particular bond whether it falls under this category or not. Same way with equity. Does anybody know whether a non-profit can invest in equity? Is equity a permissible investment under this section?
Not equity shares, but equity mutual fund is okay.
Okay. Yeah. So equity-oriented mutual funds, yes, they are allowed. But even equity shares of public sector companies are allowed under section 11.5.
Yeah, or a stock exchange. I think yes, there are a few exceptions. I think stock exchange also they've said.
Correct. So if the question is just equity shares में invest कर सकते हैं क्या नहीं, अगर वो इक्विटी शेयर पब्लिक सेक्टर कंपनी का है और वो कैटेगरी में फॉलो हो रहा है, देन दे कैन इन्वेस्ट. सिमिलर टू चिराग्स क्वेश्चन, वो बॉन्ड आपको देखना पड़ेगा वेदर इट फॉल्स अंडर एनी ऑफ द कैटेगरीज अंडर दिस सेक्शन.
Right.
So, in the computation of income,
Yeah.
15% is on the amount that is remaining, or is it on the total income that you have received?
Total income. Total income for the year.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so we'll take a short break of maybe 4 minutes because we are a little bit delayed today. So we'll just come back at 3:55. Is that okay for all?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay, I hope everybody is back. We'll just continue with next topic. Okay, so अभी थोड़े light topics हैं हमारे. We'll try to cover, as much as we can. Okay, so TDS. Let's talk about tax-related source, TDS rules. Okay. So a reflective question here before we begin. So why do you think the government prefers to collect tax through TDS rather than waiting till the end of the year? Can anybody just unmute and share ये TDS क्यों होता है, क्यों जरूरी है? Anyone?
Not everyone is paying the tax, so filing their ITRs.
Okay. Yeah, but periodic, TDS periodically क्यों लिया जाता है? Anybody else wants to share? Okay,
For the
so
government's
imagine.
cash flow, government's own
Correct,
cash
correct.
flow.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, yes. So imagine if there was no TDS or advance tax, then tax would only get paid only at the end of the year. No, before you file ITR, which is either July or no October or rather September, whenever the due date is. So in order to have continuous cash flow for the government plus continuous compliance, kind of, the owner, and also the onus of compliance is somewhere gets broken down or shared between the pay and not just the payer of taxes here. Okay, because pay is also responsible for filing, for deducting the TDS and filing the ITR, right? The onus of compliance also gets broken down and shared between two people. So it just benefits the government. Yeah. So that's the idea of having this TDS in the first place. Okay, so TDS का journal entry क्या रहेगा? Can anybody just share what will you debit, what will you credit when you are booking TDS entry? Coming
Expense
back to
account,
yes,
expense
go ahead.
account DR
Yes,
to TDS to supplier.
correct. Perfect. Yes, expense debit, direct expense, debit the expense, creditor को credit करेंगे and then TDS payable जो amount है that we will credit. TDS payable is a representative account of the government. You will show it under current liability, duties and taxes in the balance sheet. यहाँ पे it is recommended that you create separate ledgers for TDS payable based on the nature of expenses. Suppose TDS is for say professional fee, professional expenses or या टेक्निकल फी या कमीशन हो गया, कॉन्ट्रैक्टर हो गया. So you get to you should book it accordingly in your books of accounts so that when you file report TDS breakup in your TDS returns or also in your ITR, there is a section where you have to break down certain numbers with respect to TDS. You have the data in the first place captured in your accounting system. Okay, that's the idea. Okay, now let's just look at the rates that we all need to be aware of. So जैसे पहले अभी under the new law there is a new section 393 under which all the TDS provisions have been clubbed together. So earlier it was 194C for contractors, J for professional fee and technical services. Yeah, so I'll just briefly just run through the rules before I take Meghna's question. So R94C contractor, there is 1% rate जो है for individuals and HUF, and the threshold limit is 30,000 rupees for single transaction or 1 lakh rupees in aggregate. For others other than individuals and HUF, it is 2%. Same way for technical service, it is 2% if the aggregate is 50,000 rupees or more in a year. For professional fee, it is 10%. For rent of plant and machinery, it is 2%. For rent of land and building, it is 10%. And for commission, if the aggregate is more than 20,000 rupees in a year, the expense, then you will have to deduct 2% TDS. Yeah, it is, we always advise that if there is any confusion with respect to TDS payments or TDS applicability or rates, then please reach out to either your auditor or your financial consultant if there is any confusion, because in order to rectify situations, once the payment is made to the vendor, it becomes a very tedious task unless there is a subsequent payment which is pending to be made, where you can adjust the amount. Otherwise, you end up paying it from your own pocket along with interest and penalty if there is any delay. So yeah, we always advise that you reach out to the right people if there is any confusion. Meghna, you have any question?
Yes, Rohit, I've posted it in the chat box.
Okay, Meghna, I will just have to understand this a bit. Can we take it towards the end so that we at least complete what it needs to be covered today, and then we can take up the question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, So other than these TDS rates, there are other sections as well. Other nature of expenses also जो होते हैं that a non-profit can enter into. These are just the commonly used TDS sections that try to cover here. अगर और भी देखना है तो income tax website has all the details with respect to TDS rates, nature of expense and so on. Okay. One important point to note here is that if PAN number is not provided by the vendor or the PAN is inoperative, then the TDS has to be deducted at 20% and not it is 20% or actual rate, whichever is higher, basically. Okay, this is something that we all need to be careful of. Okay, now one more important point under TDS topic is TDS on payment to non-residents. Okay, so if a non-profit is making any payment to a non-resident of India, then such payment is subject to certain compliances. Okay, यहाँ पे important चीज हमको ये याद रखनी है कि so there is no rate that has been prescribed for such kind of payments, but we will have to go and evaluate what is the nature of the transaction and also look at the specific country's double tax avoidance agreement treaty, which we call as DTAA, जिसके अंदर specify किया होता है कि for a particular country, for a particular transaction, what is the rate that Indian government and the foreign government have agreed to. Okay, based on that, the TDS will get deducted. And any payment to be made through banking channels for a non-resident, before that, we have to file Form 15 CA CV as may be applicable, which is again certified by a CA, जिसमें call out किया जाता है कि as per the agreement, DTA agreement, as per the and as per the provisions, what is the rate that has been taken into consideration, and what is the nature of that expense for the RBI to really allow this foreign payment to really happen. Okay, that is what the law says. ऐसे कोई transactions आपके organizations में कभी आते हैं where you have to make the payment outside of India, it is important that you reach out to your auditor who will be certifying this kind of payment if the payment is being made through banking channels. Yes, Jasmeet.
When you say a non-resident, you mean Indian, or this can also refer to a foreign national?
Anyone. So non-resident is typically defined under the income tax law. So based on the number of days that an individual resides in India or resides outside India is considered as non-resident. But typically, just for the simplicity's sake, if any payment is happening outside of India, we need to take care of this provision. Any payment that goes outside of India, 15 CACB compliance has to be done.
Okay, so here's a question. We had a person who is not an Indian resident come to Delhi for a workshop. So while the agreement with that person was not to pay them, so they didn't ask for any payment, but we are reimbursing them their travel expenses, which they have done. And so to pay them, it is obviously a non-Indian account.
Yeah.
So in that case, which of these provisions apply?
Yeah, so see, typically for reimbursement, again, we'll have to examine the agreement that has been signed with the person. That is it like purely reimbursement, or is it reimbursement in the course of giving such kind of service? If it is in the course of giving some kind of service by the non-profit, then typically TDS provisions will apply. Again, this will have to be examined and evaluated because this is a very specific instance with a particular person. So, what is the arrangement we need to...
Who is the person that we have to evaluate this with? The CA?
Yeah. See, if you're if you're going to make the reimbursement payment through a banking channel, you will have to go through the same route of 15 CACB. Otherwise, the bank will not allow the foreign remittance to happen in the first place. So you will have to go to your CA or your auditor, for certifying that form. And while filling the form, all this information needs to be provided to the banks and RBI, basically.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
But there is nothing else that there is a challenge. I mean, it can be done. It needs to, this information needs to be given and certified by a CA. I mean, the payment can be done.
Payment can be done. Absolutely. Yes, yes. So, no, if a question is that whether non-profit can make payments outside of India, yes, it is. It is allowed under the income tax law.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. और किसी के कोई क्वेश्चंस है?
एक क्वेश्चन है।
हाँ जी।
DTAA के बेनिफिट के लिए अपने पास क्या डॉक्यूमेंट्स होना चाहिए, लाइक TRC एंड फॉर्म ऐप समथिंग?
नहीं, ये आपको स्पेसिफिकली देखना पड़ेगा व्हेन इट कम्स टू दैट पर्टिकुलर ट्रांजैक्शन। जो भी आपके ऑडिटर्स से आपको ये समझनी पड़ेगी कि कौन से डॉक्यूमेंट्स लगेंगे। टिपिकली यू आर राइट कि वो जो TRC सर्टिफिकेट है, टैक्स रेसिडेंसी सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ द फॉरेन पार्टी, एक लगता है, प्लस अग्रीमेंट भी हमने देखा है लगता है, एक इनवॉइस लगता है। सो दीज आर लाइक 2-3 डॉक्यूमेंट्स which are practically submitted before the auditors. But the auditor will be able to guide you on this specifically.
Okay.
Okay. So coming to TDS due dates, typically rent, salary, consultancy fee, contractors, जो भी TDS है, we have to deposit to the government by 7th of every month. For the month of March, the due date is 30th April, before which we have to make the payment. And quarterly returns have to be filed by 31st July, October, Jan, May, after the end of quarter, basically. For the month of March, the due date is May. So they have given a 2 months window after the year end. Okay, these are the due dates for TDS returns. Now let's also understand non-compliance के repercussions क्या होते हैं. Okay, so if there is a tax deducted by a non-profit but not paid, तो जो भी डीले है उसके ऊपर इंटरेस्ट लगेगा एट द रेट ऑफ 1.5% फॉर एवरी मंथ और पार्ट thereof. Okay, and if there is failure to deduct tax in the first place, then the interest is at 1% for every month or part of the month. Important point यहाँ पे ये है कि पूरा मंथ कैलकुलेट होता है. जैसे एग्जांपल, अगर मई मंथ है आज के दिन पे, इफ द अमाउंट इज गेटिंग डिडक्टेड टुडे ऑफ द वेंडर and you miss the due date of 7th June for this month, if you pay it on 10th June, example, तो interest जो लगेगा, तो it is not calculated on 3 days, just 3 days after the due date. It is calculated for 2 months. So entire month of May and entire month of June. That is how the calculation happens of 1.5% interest for TDS. Okay, that is one thing that you all need to be aware of. Penalty for late filing of TDS returns is at 200 rupees for every day for the failure, for whatever days, the number of days it continues. And penalty for non-filing or incorrect information in TDS return. So in addition to the late fee and penalty that we just discussed, the officer can also impose a penalty of 10,000 rupees 1 lakh. The law provides for imposing that kind of penalty. But again, like I said, penalty जब भी impose होती है, the NGO can plead before the officer, giving reasonable reasons. If the reasons are reasonable for missing out any deadlines, the officer can waive off the penalty. Okay. Yeah, one more important thing to know is that कि किसी एक्सपेंस पे अगर एनजीओ ने TDS नहीं डिडक्ट किया है, okay, then 30% of such amount is not allowed as application of income for the non-profit. Okay, suppose there is an invoice of 1 lakh rupees on which TDS is not deducted and entire amount gets paid to the vendor. Then the NGO can only claim 70,000 rupees as application of income. Even if it has spent 1 lakh rupees, it will not be able to claim 30,000 rupees of the amount spent. That is what the rule says. Any questions on this topic? किसी के कोई doubts है on TDS?
So I have a question, but it's a bit of a fix that we are in. So the place that we have as an office, when we were signing the agreement, we did not write about the TDS in the rent agreement. Yeah, and now we are having a challenge with the landlady because we are required to deduct
Yeah.
TDS.
Yes.
And we are having a challenge from them where they're like, no, you've committed a certain amount and we're not receiving that amount.
Okay.
So just facing a bit of a challenge there and wondering if there are any workarounds.
See, the law will always prevail over contracts. Even if it is not mentioned in the contract, the law will prevail. Law requires you to deduct TDS and you are obligated to deduct TDS. So it's more of a conversation with the landlady. And even, the TDS is something that the other person can claim in at the time of filing the ITR, right? So it's their money with the government. They can either claim it as their
But
tax
they don't
liability.
file at ITR. That's the challenge. They don't file an ITR. So,
Okay. No, so they will have to file. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm just in a bit of a fix. I was like, that's out of our hands, whether you file or not. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Anybody else has any questions on this?
Yeah, hi. What do it? Just about continuing with the rent. Is the question. We are also paying what rent, but we are paying not to one single landlord. So it's basically the mother and son duo. And we have been since we are making two odd payments, which is coming below the threshold. So we have been advised not to cut any TDS.
Okay. So see, usually TDS is looked at from pan angle, like, for each person, if the threshold limit is exceeded, then you are required to deduct TDS. I mean, without understanding the amounts involved, but what you need to understand is that for
How
a
much is
particular amount,
how much is the limit for rent? Like if I'm just asking.
50,000 is the limit in aggregate in a year.
50,000 per month, right?
Yeah, it is per month. Yes.
50,000 per month and per what individual, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. So what basically our rent is somewhere between 80 to 90, but since we're making a payment into two accounts, so we have been advised not to cut any TDS.
Yeah. If it's below the threshold as per law, then shouldn't be a challenge.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, Pallavi, you have any question?
सर एक्चुअली मुझे ये पूछना था कि समझो अप्रैल मंथ में एक वेंडर है और उसका हमने 20,000 बिल आया बट उस पे हमने टीडीएस नहीं काटा क्योंकि 30,000 के अगर वन टाइम 30,000 है तो वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट पे उसका टीडीएस कटेगा बट हमने नहीं काटा बट नेक्स्ट जून अगस्त में उसका वापस एक बिल आया देन वो 70,000 है सब तो मुझे फिर वो 30,000 पे भी काटना पड़ेगा या ओनली 70,000 पे ही मुझे टीडीएस काटना पड़ेगा उसका वो मुझे थोड़ा सा जानना था
सो सी वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम अ प्रैक्टिकल एंगल क्योंकि इस एग्जाम्पल में आपका ईयर चेंज हो रहा है आपको सिर्फ 70,000 पे काटना है क्योंकि मार्च मंथ में तो अप टू 31 मार्च जो भी है वो एग्रीगेट देखना है आपको
फाइनेंशियल ईयर तो वही है अप्रैल है और अगस्त है तो फाइनेंशियल ईयर तो वही है
सो टिपिकली व्हाट वी एडवाइज इन सच केसेस अगर एक ही साल में अगर सब्सिक्वेंटली अगर बिल ज्यादा आ रहा है तो वो टाइम पे प्रीवियस इसका भी काट के भर देने का टू बी ऑन द सेफ साइड
बट फिर उस पे इंटरेस्ट भी लगेगा देन
yes
4 मंथ का
okay unfortunate situation but yes practically that's what we advise to not get into litigation with officer later on
नहीं सर इंटरेस्ट तो नहीं लगेगा
सी अभी इसमें मल्टीपल स्टैंड्स ले सकते हैं ओके
क्योंकि वो तो अगस्त के अंदर में वो लिमिट क्रॉस की है
एक्चुअली हाँ
see there are multiple stands here
anyway वो लिमिट क्रॉस हुई अगस्त
yes okay a reflective question here imagine you are managing your accounts of a non-profit and you receive rupees 25,000 cash from someone who does not provide the identity details. So would you record it as regular donation or treat it differently? What do you think? How will you treat this 25,000 rupees? Okay, anonymous donation, regular donation. Okay. Yes, so right answer is anonymous donation. क्योंकि आइडेंटिटी ऑफ द डोनर अगर हमको नहीं मिल रहे अपने डोनर्स के, then it will be considered anonymous donation. Now let's understand what is anonymous donation from income tax angle. Okay. Again, lot of confusion with respect to this topic. So first, let's understand anonymous donation is a voluntary contribution and NGO does not have the record of identity. अभी identity of the donor क्या है? See, under this particular provision, identity has been defined as name and address only. Okay, PAN नहीं included है. So that means a non-profit जिसके पास name and address है किसी donor का, that donation will not be considered anonymous. लेकिन irrespective of PAN है या नहीं, this is not a question criteria for anonymous donation as per the law. And it is name and address. सिर्फ नाम है, address नहीं है, not allowed. सिर्फ address है, नाम नहीं है, that is also not allowed. Both should be there. Okay, now why this topic is important is that if the anonymous donation crosses the threshold limit of 1 lakh rupees or 5% of the total donations received by a trust in the year, whichever is higher, then there is a 30% flat rate of tax to be paid on that money. Irrespective of anonymous donation, whether you are spending it towards charitable purpose or not, that doesn't matter. It is taxes on income, purely on income basis. This is what the rule says. Of course, for religious trust, there is an exemption because a lot of temples, mosques, they have this donation box in which sort of anonymous donation gets can be collected. So there is no tax on that amount. Hence, there is an exemption. But for non-profits like us, it is taxable. Okay, anybody has any questions on this topic?
But with just name and address, you
Yeah.
can file the 10BE anyways, right?
No, for 10 BD, you need PAN as well.
Right.
Yeah. So how you interpret this is that for a non-profit, anonymous donation कहलाया नहीं जाएगा, but you cannot pass on the benefit to the donor through Form 10BD.
Okay.
Yeah. If there is no PAN. Anybody else has any question on this?
Sir, in terms of exemption limit, could you explain in the example so that we can understand it?
हाँ, तो अगर say वो 10 lakh rupees in a year one organization gets total donation अगर आता है, तो उसमें से exemption limit could be 5% of the donation. So 5% of 10 lakh rupees is 50,000 rupees or 1 lakh rupees, whichever is higher. तो up to 1 lakh rupees in this case, up to 1 lakh rupees, the NGO can accept anonymous donations. up to 1 lakh rupees कोई टैक्स नहीं भरना है. देखिए 1 लाख रुपीस के ऊपर जो अमाउंट है उसके ऊपर 30% टैक्स भरना पड़ेगा.
ओके, ठीक है सर, थैंक यू.
यस. और किसी के कोई क्वेश्चन है इसके ऊपर? ओके. तो इसका अकाउंटिंग एंट्री विल बी क्वाइट सिंपल. वंस यू रिसीव anonymous donation, it will be cash or bank account debit to anonymous donation. Important point here is that you should have a separate ledger and recording in your books for such kind of anonymous donations because ITR और फॉर्म जो टैक्स ऑडिट रिपोर्ट है उसमें आपको anonymous donation अलग से रिपोर्ट करना होता है. ओके. Okay. So let's move on to the next topic. So before that, one reflective question here. What controls do you think an NGO should set up internally to capture donor details? On the website, yeah, while accepting cash donations, yeah, while sharing bank details. Can you think of any controls that we all need to take care of from an NGO's perspective? या आप कोई कुछ controls follow कर रहे हो in order to get donor details? like आपके वेबसाइट पे अगर कोई डोनेशन देता है, are there any controls that you have adopted to collect donor details on your website?
We have done this before, but yeah, basically, like it gets mandated to enter certain details before the donor can get to
Correct.
the payment option.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So, before you get any donation, especially through online channels, it is important that you have some kind of control. There is a page where you collect the donor information, basic donor information like name, address, for not being considered as anonymous. And of course, benefit देना है तो PAN भी necessary है. No, PAN is also mandatory if you have to get if the donor wants to avail ATG benefits. So yeah, while accepting even outside of website, when you are receiving any donations through either check or cash below the limits, you will have to have some kind of mechanism internally within the organization to collect the data from the donor. Some kind of declaration that needs to be filled, or some kind of form that needs to be filled, or some kind of or some place in your systems where donor data is being maintained. इसमें एक और चीज हमको ध्यान देनी है कि on our website we should ideally not put our bank account, कि because there is a risk element involved there. Suppose you get the money without tracing the donor, which is above the threshold limit, then again you will end up paying tax on anonymous donation. There is also a bigger risk here कि अगर कोई foreign contributor रहेगा, just because that person is just coming on your website and donating the money, and it hits your bank account, and later on you come to know that he is a foreign donor, then again it is a risk for the non-profit to accept foreign contribution in the non-foreign contribution bank account. Or if you don't have FCRA registration, again then it's a violation of the FCRA law. So all these issues could be avoided provided you have proper controls and systems in place when it comes to capturing donor data. Okay, Excel is maintained, name, address. Yeah, I mean, these are all various ways in which we can have controls in place. Okay, anybody has any questions or anything to share on this? And any practical scenarios that you guys are facing you would want to share when it comes to maintaining data of donors and having some kind of controls in place?
I mean, yeah, particularly for FCRA donations, again, a lot of times the person donating is not aware that it's primarily hinging on the nationality of the individual. We have had cases where Indians who are residing abroad have looked at it as that, okay, it's an FCRA, like they are foreigners basically, but that's not the case.
Yeah, and practically I've also seen NGOs struggling to send back that money. If at all, by mistake somebody has received money into the non-FCRA bank account. The hassles of repatriating that money is again a different issue altogether.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. Yeah, Jasmeet, you have rightly mentioned we should not ideally give the bank account details unless you have the donor details. I mean, that is the best way to have that control in place. But before even issuing the bank details, there is a precondition to receive the data first, the donor details first. Absolutely. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to this again, a very critical topic, books of accounts under the income tax law. So until 5-6 years back, or maybe 3-4 years back, there was no such law with respect to no such provision under the income tax law with respect to calling out what books of account needs to be maintained by a non-profit. But after this rule of 17A, and also under this new act, this rule is carried forward. There are certain books of accounts that have been prescribed under the law, which needs to be maintained by a non-profit. Okay, so it's a big list. If you can refer to this section, you will get to know the exhaustive list. So some of the critical records to be kept is project or institution run by a non-profit, record of income, details of income that non-profit generates, details of application of income that gets that an NGO can claim, records of specified application out of the income of previous years. जैसे कैरिड फॉरवर्ड अगर कुछ अमाउंट रहता है उसमें से अगर कोई स्पेंड हुआ हो ये साल में तो उसका भी डेटा मेंटेन करना ज़रूरी है. Any specific direction towards corpus data needs to be maintained by the non-profit. If there are any loans or borrowings taken by a non-profit, even that data is required to be maintained. Any properties held by the trust and also specified persons. We discussed about this substantial contributor. All these details are mandatorily required to be maintained by a non-profit. In fact, in the tax audit report, there is a space where the auditor has to certify whether the non-profit is maintaining this data or not. And if the non-profit is not maintaining certain records, then the auditor has to flag it in their report to the authorities. So, it's important. The onus is on the non-profit to maintain these records, whereas the auditor's job is to certify whether these records really exist and what are the missing records for the non-profit. So yeah, the onus is completely on us to have such kind of books of accounts maintained. Okay, in additionally, there are certain other books of accounts like cash book, ledger, journal, copies of serially numbered receipts, original copy of invoices that require to be maintained. Typically, when we are using some kind of software, so all these vouchers are anyway getting recorded in the software itself, and even digital form में अगर हम कोई records maintain करें, even that is a valid record. Okay, such records are required to be kept for practically from a 10 years perspective. 10 साल तक हमको ये records रखने हैं from the end of the relevant assessment year. It is to be kept in a written form or electronic form, and it has to be at the registered office of the non-profit. Okay, if the accounts are maintained other than the registered office, then the NGO is required to intimate the assessing officer in writing that where the books of accounts are maintained by the non-profit. So this is what Rule 17AA talks about. Anybody has any questions on this? कुछ doubts है इस topic पे? Okay. So we are close to like 4:30. I think we'll have to extend this session by maybe around 15 minutes. If I hope everybody is okay with that. We'll try to close it within 15 minutes. Okay, so this is kind of second last topic for today, employee investment declaration. Okay, again, something that is very practically relevant for the accounts and finance team to really understand why this is required. तो जैसे हमने TDS के सेक्शन देखे तो एक और सेक्शन है जैसे ओल्ड लॉ में 192 सेक्शन TDS ऑन सैलरी था, नए लॉ में भी section number is I think section 392 which talks about TDS deduction on salary. Now why this is important is that we need to NGO needs to obtain from all the employees whoever's salary is crossing the threshold limit. As per the slab rates, they say up to a certain slab, there is no tax on an individual's salary income, but after the threshold limit is crossed, there is a tax element that we need to take care of as a non-profit. So jiska bhi income, I think currently as per the slab rate up to 12 lakh rupees, there is no income tax that is payable. But if somebody crosses 12 lakh rupees, then we as non-profits need to obtain a declaration from the individual where the individual can say whether they want to opt for the old regime or the new regime. By default, it is the new regime that is there. But if an individual wants to opt for old regime, where they are investing in certain investments like insurance, certain mutual funds, equity linked mutual funds, or some kind of medical insurance, and there are under section 80G housing loan if somebody has taken. If they want to claim deductions under chapter 6A deductions, then they have to give those kind of declarations at the beginning of the year, based on which we as non-profits need to compute their income tax liability for the year and then deduct the TDS on salary proportionately over in every month from the salaries. That is what the process is. For calculating the tax, there is a tax calculator on the income tax website. यहाँ पे हमने link भी डाली है. You can refer to this calculator as well, where you just enter the total CTC or total gross salary. कितना total tax liability है वो आपको दिखाई देगा. And then you will have to proportionately deduct from every month's salary up to 31st March. Okay. There is a declaration template also that we have. We'll be sharing that along with this PPT subsequently, which you can use in your organization. If you are not following such kind of process, then you can implement it by using this kind of template. Okay, so the simple steps here is that first, before the beginning of the year, we need to take investment declaration from each of the employee. To understand the choice between old regime and new regime. If it is old regime, then declaration should also include planned investments of that individual. Then we need to compute the tax liability and deduct proportionately from monthly salary up to 31st March. And towards the end of the financial year, we have to obtain the proofs of the investment declaration that the individual has given at the beginning to recompute the TDS liability based on actuals. And then whatever balance, either shortfall or excess, whatever adjustment needs to be made in the TDS computation in the liability, we need to deduct it before releasing the last salary of the employee. Okay, that's the process with respect to TDS on salary and employee investment declaration form. Jasmeet, your question, if this is not there. So, okay, so if I were to understand your question correctly, so if your NGO is not following this process, then what happens? See, while I understand what you have written, the individual at the time of filing the ITR can give the correct disclosure and pay the tax, but that will not absolve the NGO from not complying with the TDS provisions, and it will be subject to litigation. Okay, because deducting TDS is NGO's liability, NGO's responsibility and compliance requirement. अगर NGO वो नहीं कर रहा है, तो whatever penalties and whatever implications are there, consequences are there, the assessing officer can raise on us. But at the same time, if the individual is filing subsequently in the ITR, I have seen cases reaching, ITAT and, at the higher authorities where courts have declared that as long as government is getting tax, they cannot penalize the NGO or the organization. But again, it will go into litigation. Assessing officer will never agree to this. This will only after a certain point you may get relief. Again, not an advisable practice. It is best that if you're not following that, you follow it every year.
So let me clarify, Rohit. What I meant is not that the TDS is not deducted, but that the investment declaration might not have been taken. So there is a difference in what the actual, if there is any other income or planned investment, there is a difference. And instead of the employee settling that with the organization, with the NGO, they resolve that in their ITR. So the NGO deducts the TDS as required based on the thresholds. So NGO does its job. But beyond that, any other adjustments that need to be made, whether if the employee has other investments or any other sources of income or any other tax deduction that are possible, then all that is settled directly in the ITR versus in giving it to the NGO, which then does it in the last salary.
Yeah, so see, if there are any additional investments that our employee is making but not submitted to the non-profit, then non-profit can rely on whatever information has been obtained from the employee and calculate the TDS, tax liability and pay to the government. Subsequently, if employee is declaring something in addition to what it has submitted to the employer, they have the right to do that in the ITR.
Okay, that's what I was clarifying.
Yeah,
Not that as an NGO, we don't deduct the TDS and not do that.
Sure.
Thanks.
Sure. Yes, Rohan, yes, this rule is common for all, not only for non-profits, but also for-profit organizations. Yes. Does anybody have any questions? Other questions on this? Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is the last topic, compliance tracker. So there's a template that we have, we'll be sharing with everyone to have some kind of compliance tracker to be maintained from in the accounts and finance function, which can also be used as a template for reporting internally to the senior management, so that the senior management also has some visibility on the regular compliances that are required to be undertaken by the non-profit. So this will include like TDS, be it profession tax, PT, ESIC, ITR, any renewals that are due during the year. This can be implemented and used internally. We'll be sharing it with you after this session. Yeah, so that was it with respect to the topics that we discussed. किसी के कोई questions है? We can take the questions before we move on to the quiz. Does anybody have any questions? Meghna, maybe we can just quickly take your question. Do you want to brief your question? Unmute and brief your question.
Yeah. So actually, when we file Form 10, so we are saying that we are accumulating some income, like we are
Yeah.
making an FD out of that income.
Yeah.
So then in the next year, when we are receiving the donations again in the bank account, we are applying that donation income in that year without breaking the actual FD.
Okay.
So when we are filing the Form 10 in the next year,
Hmm.
and we are saying that we have utilized the amount from year 1.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
does that have any implication? Like actually we are not
Yeah.
using the year 1 income, but
Hmm.
we are using the donation received.
Understood. Yeah. Yeah. So see, under the law, abhi there is no such provision which says that there has to be one-on-one identification with respect to this accumulated amount technically. लेकिन see, from a very yeah, again, see, I have seen both the scenarios. Practically, how it works is that some organizations do follow what you just said, where because it's a common pool of money, it can be used as a fungible sum of money, right? But at the same time, some organizations, in order to just avoid any kind of pinpointing or any kind of issues with the assessing officer at the time of scrutiny, they just break the FD and just renew it, so that the FD one is broken, it is in the common pool of the savings bank account, and then again a new FD gets created, just to avoid any kind of issues. But I think my personal view would be that it can as long as it is a common pool of money, we can still take a stand that we need not break the FD to really call out that I am using this particular amount which belong to that year, and by breaking the FD I'm trying to put, because money is kind of fungible, right? So it's a common pool of money which we can always report it subsequently. So yeah, you can do without breaking of FD also. You may be able to do, but again, how the officer will look at it is a different question altogether. Yeah, does that help?
Yes, thank you, Rohit.
Sure. Yeah, can we take deduction NPS as per the new regime? Yeah, as far as I have read, I think pension scheme is still allowed under the new regime as well. But again, we need to check this specifically. Yeah, if it is paid by employer only, then yeah, there are some nuances to this specific NPS with respect to new regime. Yeah, need to check this and see what exactly is the implication.
Not allowed, only by if the employer is paying them, subject to some limit.
Yeah. Okay, so that brings an end to today's session and topic. We'll just have a quick quiz round. round? No, I hope everybody is now aware of the teams that they belong to. So first question to team one. Is registration under section 12AB is primarily required to receive CSR funding, claim tax exemption, open bank accounts, or avoid GST? Option A, B, C, D. B, okay. Yes, correct. B is the right answer, claim tax exemption. Next question to team two. Which form is required to be filed for reporting donor-wise details of donations for giving tax deductions? Form 10BE, Form 10, Form 10B, Form 10BD. Okay, Form 10BD 113. Yes, option number 4 is the right answer. Absolutely, yes. Question to team number 3. Anonymous donations are taxed at a special rate because they are illegal, donor identity is not available, they are always corpus, they are foreign contributions.
B, donor identity is not available.
Yes, that's right. Answer B is the right answer. Back to team 1. Inter-charity donations are treated as application of income only if given to any organization, given in cash, given to a registered charitable organization approved by the auditor. Rajiv says C, Meghna says C. Okay, perfect. Answer C is the right answer. Okay, question number 5 to team 2. Failure to deduct TDS on eligible payments may result in only interest liability, 30% disallowance of expense, cancellation of registration, no impact. Okay, there is B, A, B, B, B. I think majority are on B. Yes, it's not just only interest, but also 30% disallowance of expense also not allowed as an application of income. Okay, last question to team 3. Books of accounts for a non-profit must be maintained only at head office, only electronically, at registered office or notified place, or only during audit.
C.
Yes, yes. Answer C is the right answer. Yes. At registered office or any notified place. This allowed to check. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for today's session. We had to extend the time by 15 minutes, but I hope it was a useful session. Yeah, like I say every time, please do mention, put down your key learnings on the Discord channel, whatever new things you would have learned. It will just help us understand, know whether it was relevant, not relevant, what was a topic that you found very useful, what you knew already, probably, it was more of a refresher. It will just help us get an idea, from you guys. Thank you, everyone. Anybody would want to share anything? I'm here, happy to listen.
So, Dohit, I had a
Yes.
question. So this substantial contributor is also a no, foreign contributor, like somebody who's an NRI?
Yeah. See, under income tax, there is no such distinction between foreign contributor and this thing. So it is, so everybody is included. Even foreign donors, individuals or corporates are really
Okay.
covered under the definition.
That was something new that I learned.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else would want to share any of your learnings? Happy to take. Or if you have any questions, doubts, we can discuss.
सर मेरा एक क्वेश्चन था ईपीएफ के रिगार्डिंग.
हाँ जी.
जैसे कि
EPF, प्रोविडेंट फंड.
जी सर.
ओके.
तो सर जैसे कि हमारा कोई एक स्टाफ आता है, वो 15,000 की सैलरी लेता है,
हाँ.
तो हमारा उसमें एक पेंशन फंड में भी जाता है उसका एक पार्ट.
हम्म.
तो सर अगर उसके बाद सर्टेन मतलब एक टाइम के बाद वो उसकी सैलरी इंक्रीज होते रहती है, तो देन मतलब क्या वो चलता ही रहेगा या फिर एक टाइम के बाद उसे हटाना चाहिए?
हम्म देखो अभी frankly speaking, देखो I am not a labor law expert. These are like provident fund specific questions, but I don't know if anybody else knows this topic and can help out. Manish, कोई है यहाँ पे who has worked on provident fund and pension schemes? Yeah, Manish, unfortunately, I don't think anybody here has worked on the labor law front. But yeah, I don't have an answer for this, to be very frank. कि क्या
ओके
होना
सर,
चाहिए? Yeah,
ओके सर, नॉट एन इशू।
sure. Anybody has any questions with respect to the topics that were covered today or any of the previous sessions so far? Because after this, we just have one session remaining.
सर एक टीडीएस के रिगार्डिंग एक क्वेश्चन मैं करता हूँ कि
हाँ जी,
जैसे कि आपने बताया था 1.5% पर मंथ उसमें इंटरेस्ट लगता है,
करेक्ट।
तो उसमें कुछ ऐसा भी है कि हमारा अगर 2-3 दिन का ही डिले हुआ है
या
तो उसके बाद मतलब पर डे के
या
हिसाब से नहीं लगेगा, वो पर मंथ ही
नहीं,
लगेगा?
यस यस, अनफॉर्चुनेटली दैट इज द सिचुएशन कि 2 months का लगेगा बेसिकली. देयर इज नो प्रोविजन फॉर पर डे कैलकुलेशन उसमें.
ओके सर, ओके,
यस यस
थैंक यू सर।
यस. Okay, perfect. If there are no more questions, then maybe we can wrap up for today. Thank you so much. Thank